Hi there, my name is Simba Dube, and you are listening to the CRO Cafe podcast, a show where we give you raw conversations based on real experimentation experience and consistent conversion optimization results. In today's episode, I'm joined by one of the top experts in conversion optimization, Rich Page. Rich is one of the few people who have been doing conversion rate optimization for more than 15 years. Before writing two books about conversion optimization, he wrote a thesis on usability for his master's.
Yeah, so I've always been really interested in improving websites. I used to try to email some of the owners of websites when I found things that I didn't like when I was much younger. Back when Amazon was back in the mid 90s. So I've always really been interested in improving websites. Then I actually wrote a thesis on website usability for my master's, which because I found web usability really interesting and has an impact on the usability of websites. And then actually I started to get really interested into learning what actually happens at websites and how they perform, and by using web analytics. So one of the books that really got me into that was Avinash Kaushik's Web Analytics an Hour a Day, which was an amazing, real eye-opener book, which was really interesting because I never would have dreamt that I would eventually write a book in the same series of this Hour a Day series. So, but then and then one of the other really eye-opening things that I read was a book called Call to Action by Brian Eisenberg, which that was one of his first books. I think that was mid 2005. I think that was. And that really opened up my eyes to what you can do with CRO and A/B testing to improve websites. And then the rest is really history. I mean, I've got other things that really helped get me into this industry are online marketing. I did a lot of online marketing and started to realize, why don't things always work that well? So then you start to realize, is it because of the website? So that really helped and related really well to CRO.
Okay, so was it called conversion rate optimization or there was a different name?
That's a very good question. It was more about A/B testing back in those days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So and then CRO term kind of got big. Ironically, my book I called website optimization. Because it wasn't that term was more popular than CRO in the day. So my publisher decided it would be better to call it website optimization. And the problem is that then confused people that thought that was SEO, search engine optimization. So and then that CRO term has finally become a bit more widespread in the industry now. So which is good news.
Nice. Before you got into conversion optimization, what were you doing to pay the bills? What was helping you pay the bills?
I was doing online marketing for a couple of businesses, and which was really interesting. Doing things like Google Ads, SEO, and other types of online marketing. And then I started to want to know exactly the performance of it. So that's how I got into being a web analyst, and then started that role. And then I realized, I want to know. I don't want to just do reporting. I want to actually give insights into, okay, this is what I recommend based on what I've seen. You need to improve XYZ to fix those issues where people are dropping off at a certain page, or they're not getting to where they're supposed to, or they're abandoning the checkout. So that's the path that really took me into CRO. And I think it's a good I think it's hard to really get straight into CRO without having some kind of background in those. Some people talk about statistics a lot, for example. It's useful, but I think being a web analyst is actually even more important, and having that mindset of trying to analyze what could be wrong to come up with the ideas to improve in the first place.
You have been doing this for more than 15 years. I think you're one of the OGs in conversion rate optimization. How many websites do you think you have optimized so far?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been doing many website audits. I've been, I don't know, hundreds in the last 15 years, all the way from when I used to work for Disney was one of them. I was their manager of reporting and analysis when I started to get into A/B testing and CRO for them. To bigger clients like Vodafone when I was working at Adobe, and then all the way through smaller e-commerce companies, smaller software as a service businesses. So yeah, I've worked for hundreds of different types of businesses, as well as hundreds of, probably getting on 500 different types of websites. So, I mean, this is my real passion.
There are different kinds of conversion research techniques, but you specialize on customer and visitor surveys. Why those two?
I mean, I was always using web analytics and to come up with insights for better website improvement ideas. But I've really discovered that if you get into this conversion research and do things like visitor surveys and customer surveys really well, it forms a gold mine of insights and website improvement ideas that work much better than just relying on best practices, which don't often work for websites because every website's unique, every website's different. Too many companies out there focused on that. Too many people just chase those quick wins, and they're disappointed when they don't work. Well, it's because if you're not listening to your audience and understanding what their needs and doubts and hesitations are, and what they're really having issues with, and want to have improved, then you're kind of you're barking up the wrong tree almost, and you're not going to have as big impacts from what you're doing there. So yeah, that's how I've got into really doing this and specializing in it, and it's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing for sure. And I think people tend to misunderstand a lot of things about conversion rate optimizations, a lot of aspects. But when it comes to customer and visitor surveys, do you think that's also the case?
Yeah, I think whenever I initially say that I want to do these surveys to my clients, or I talk about them, a lot of people think of these surveys as being like, product surveys that are just asking about what did you think of the product, or what did you think about your customer service, which are a pretty dry topic. And obviously the people who are completing them don't really care about them. They're usually, 50 questions long. They take you way too long to answer. So there is some kind of negative connotations with those. Whereas the types of visitor and customer surveys that work well for in CRO are more to do with improving the visitor experience. So trying to get feedback on, what they were doing online, what they liked, what they didn't like. So those are really important things that the differentiation and misunderstanding about those surveys. So, and also a lot of people think that these visitor surveys, because so many people are starting to do them, but they're not doing them very well. And unfortunately, they make the mistake of popping them up immediately, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because if you've just arrived on a website, you're not going to have, not only are you going to be annoyed by seeing a pop-up,
Yeah, true.
you won't even have had any time to use the website to give any good feedback. So that's why I think these surveys get a bad rep.
Yes, I'm one of those people who thinks that pop-ups and surveys can be annoying and distracting sometimes. So, how do you come up with a survey that is more appealing and less annoying? Is there a best way you can strike a balance between less annoying and more appealing?
So yeah, visitor surveys, what you really need to do is you need to first of all get around that point of when to ask them using a pop-up survey. So what you would do is you would make that appear generally after a couple of minutes, and ideally you want to make it show only after they have seen a product page or a service page or a pricing page or something that would indicate that they've got quite far down their journey. Don't leave it up to the checkout point. Obviously, you won't get so many people in there anyway to give you that information. So that's going to be really important. And then one of the other key things is not only the questions you use, which I'll kind of cover later on, but how you're even asking for this feedback, because this is probably another thing that people are annoyed with, is that when people may have run these visitor surveys previously, they may
Mm-hmm.
have not incentivized it
Mm-hmm.
because, and therefore not got very responses, so kind of given up on it, like, oh, that didn't work, I tried it, didn't work. Or they will offer like we will give a whatever it is, £5, $5 incentive if you complete this survey, or they will say win £100 or win $100 or whatever, have a chance to win it. Now, neither of those work particularly well, because often people will just fill those surveys in to try to win the incentive. And I've
Yeah.
seen it
Yeah.
in the results. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you know, I really want to win this survey. It will mean that I can finally buy this prize.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought of the idea a couple of years ago to change that to be, instead of saying you can win, you have a chance of winning, actually changing that to be to say, if you give us the best and most useful feedback to us, you could win and this prize,
Nice.
which actually makes them work harder and give better feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes and really cuts down this kind of crap of visitors just
Mm.
responding like yes or no kind of answers. And really, I mean, I've got some amazing detailed answers. Yeah, so that to me is one of the biggest improvements that anyone can make to their surveys, is how how they're popping up that question to get people interested, and setting up that right kind of expectation of what they need to do in order to try to win it. So that works extremely well. So, and then some other things for actually setting up the visitor survey. I talked about when it should show, and then the incentivizing it. But you you also, what else was there? I would also offer a kind of a gift certificate either to your own website, or if you want to make it even more broad, you could offer like an Amazon gift certificate. $50 works well, depending on the budget. Have had clients who've gone up to $250 one time for the best feedback, which has worked the best. And if you think about it, you're probably spending hundreds per week, even per day on Google Ads or something. So this is a drop in the ocean in comparison to the insights you'll get from it. So try to get as much as the higher you get, the more responses that you will get. And then, because you really needs to at least need 100 responses from this visitor survey to be able to get enough insights to get enough feedback to work with. So that's what I really recommend. And then customer surveys, I'll just talk about setting those up quickly. The key difference with that is that you need to email this survey to your customers, and it should be slightly different than the visitor feedback. The visitor feedback really should be like 5 really short questions. Again, I'll cover those in a minute of what they should be. But they're more to do with they're getting that quick first impressions, and asking them some of the things that might be causing them problems or not understanding. Whereas, so yeah, customer surveys are different than visitor surveys because they really try to get that feedback from the people who have purchased. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really important to do that because you'll kind of help understand what nearly stopped them from purchasing.
Yeah.
That is one of the key things that you need to ask to customers, because if you can figure that out, then and address those issues on your website, maybe they didn't trust you, or they couldn't quite do something, or you didn't have enough information, then you can fix your website and address those issues, and to stop other people potentially not purchasing, like just like
Mm-hmm.
this person, just like your customer nearly didn't purchase. So it's really important there. And then, as I was saying, yeah, this will be longer than your visitor survey. So visitor survey, you want to limit to like 5-6 questions. It just has to be short, to the point, whereas this can be a bit longer, 15-20 questions. Don't go like 50 questions or something ridiculous where I've seen on some of these surveys out there. That you just get such a high drop off rate towards the end, and people just get annoyed and give up. So that's the real differences between the customer surveys, but they're both really equally important. So visitor surveys you'll get the people who haven't purchased yet, who will have very different inputs and feedback, whereas customers, they've already bought. So they've been through the whole journey and purchased. So they will actually have just as good feedback, because they can tell you, as I said, what nearly stopped them from purchasing.
Okay, so when it comes to customer surveys and customer interviews, I believe that the quality of feedback and insights you get from your customers is determined by the quality of questions that you ask them. So, meaning that if you ask them garbage questions, you're going to get garbage insights or garbage feedback. So, do you have like specific questions that you normally ask your customers, questions that guarantee quality feedback?
Yeah, sure. So because I've been doing these so now, I've kind of worked out what questions have seem to get better results and better insights than others. One of my favorites at the moment for visitor surveys is um, what doubts or hesitations do you have about this website?
Mm.
So, and that's good because it will really help understand if there's any trust or credibility issues. Like maybe they don't know who you are well enough. You don't, you're not showing social proof or other things. Those will, you'll get some good answers there, which will help. And by the way, when you're in the beginning of the survey, you should always ask people to be, to be honest as possible, and to give any suggestions for improvements, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want people to just be nice. That's the worst thing, even with user tests as well, is like you just
Yes.
getting people who just polite and like, oh yes, this is great, oh I would have purchased, because you don't care about that. You almost want them to say bad things, and
Mm-hmm.
I prefer it when they do. So that's really important to mention in the introduction to the survey when you're asking these questions. So that's a really good question for visitor surveys. Another one that works really well, I've learned, is there anything stopping you from purchasing right now? Similar to the question I just mentioned, but this is
Yeah.
really, like perhaps they have just tried to find something that they couldn't find and don't know the answer to it. Therefore, perhaps they can't find out how much it is for shipping, or they can't, they don't understand about the return services, or they don't understand how the free trial works,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're going to get billed at a certain point, all those types of things. Or perhaps they found an issue on your website, like maybe there is something broken. So that's why that's a
Mm-hmm.
really good question. Then for what another really good question to ask is, and this is kind of trying to help understand your ideal customer in a bit broader terms,
Mm-hmm.
asking what are the key factors that influence their purchase decision when they're
Mm-hmm.
buying something like that. Because once you know that, it may be very different than what you think it is. So if you think that it's the quality and actually isn't, and they care more about price,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you want to adapt your messaging to mention that a bit more clearly. Or perhaps they want like with clothes, they want something that lasts a long time rather than something that doesn't last very long. That can give you some really good insights there. But all these are much better than just simply asking, what do you think of this website, which are
Yeah.
very broad, very, do you have any issues with it? You need to almost frame them in this different way to try to get them to give that answer to you that will give you the best feedback.
I like that the examples you gave are open ended questions and they give customers enough room to express themselves. But when you ask a customer or a visitor, what doubts do you have on this website? I think that's more of a leading question that assumes that they were doubting something on your website.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good question, but the way I think about it, like it would be
Mm.
very rare for someone to come on your website and purchase immediately without having any
Yeah,
reservations.
true.
Everyone
Yes.
is always going to have some kind of doubt or
Mm-hmm.
hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so don't think about being negative in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And if they've already got down to that path of giving you feedback, they're probably quite interested in the product. If people don't like your product and don't like your website, they're going to be gone immediately. So you
Yeah.
would have already factored out those kind of people.
Okay, suppose one of our listeners has an e-commerce website. How often should they launch a survey? And is there like a specific moment that they should launch it?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So visitor survey, I suggest doing this probably. I mean, first of all, if you haven't done it before, do it now. Go and do these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, um, I offer services that help you come up with these specific questions because although those questions I've given just talked about are very good general questions, there are very specific ones you're going to want to ask for your particular type of website. But so it's important you get that right first time. But then, so you need to launch that, get, as I said, 100 responses, do some analysis, be amazed at the insights that you'll get. Use those as ideas for A/B testing, and if you've got enough traffic, that is, and then or just website improvements. If you don't have that luxury of having enough traffic to do a lot of A/B testing. And then once you've done that, I would always recommend doing a follow-up, perhaps in 6 months' time, depending on how much you get to improve. So if you've improved a significant amount in 3 months' time, or I've already launched a major redesign, do it again, because it's always important to get that feedback anytime you launch anything major. So as I said, first time, do it. If you've never done it before, then maybe once every 6 months to a year. And then also anytime you're launching a new website or anything major launches. And then with customers, what I would do is I would email it to them. And again, do it as soon as possible. Go back, at least a year's worth of customers. If you go back much further, your website is probably could have already changed quite a lot. So they may not remember using your website. So if you go back more than a year, it won't be as useful. But ideally, so you want to send that out to, get that customer list and email it to them. Give them a good friendly email, good subject line to increase the chances of them reading it and opening it. And then again, that incentive, same principle there. You may want I always suggest giving a higher incentive to these customer surveys than the visitor surveys.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you would do is you would do this automated after you've done that initial batch to catch whatever the last 6 months worth. You then would need to automate it. So every time, after they've purchased, depending on if they have to wait to receive it, you would send that survey whatever a week later via an email marketing automation. So which is obviously critical to try also to help and get them to come back. So it works well for adding into an email automation, so that every time someone purchases, you get this, and then you just check that list of survey responses from your customers, whatever, every couple of weeks to see if there's anything really interesting in there. And so that's the best way of doing it. It's an ongoing process. The customer surveying.
Mm. Okay, let's say that you have launched the survey, right? To what extent should you trust the responses? Because sometimes I believe that what people say is not what they really do. Is there a way that you can try and improve the quality of responses?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, that's was kind of alluding to earlier. So first of all, you need to change instead of just saying you have a chance to win it, it should be the person who gives the best feedback or most useful feedback. And you can tell while you're reading it, the people who have just rushed because the people who do spend time and are really thoughtful, you'll start to see patterns in the feedback that you're getting. And you're like, oh yeah, that person kind of said that in a similar way over there. Like, oh, yeah, if we combine those two thoughts together, we could do this. So you doing that will naturally weed out that people who are just eager to please and trying to win that contest. And then, as I was saying, when you're introducing the survey, you need to be saying things like, please be honest with your feedback, give
Yeah.
suggestions, and tell them, look, we're not just looking for praise and nice things. We want you to be as honest as possible. We're looking for constructive feedback and what we can improve. If you don't mention that, yeah, that's also going to make people think they shouldn't be. A lot of people are too nice when they're, particularly the English, when they're. I mean, some of these feedback I've seen, it's very like, oh, yes, sorry to mention it, but they're very nice. So US, a bit more direct, I found, but in the so that's why it's always good, in particular in the UK, to ask this. Please be honest. Don't worry about if anything is negative. We're looking for the most useful and honest, best feedback. That will really help. Okay.
Okay, let's just shift gears a bit here. We've chatted a lot about customer surveys. Do you have other techniques that you use to gather conversion research insights besides customer surveys?
Yeah, that's a good question, because these customer surveys and visitor surveys are very important parts of conversion research. And in my opinion, you can't do effective conversion research, conversion optimization without it. There's also some other really high impact ways of doing conversion research. And the other one I always highly recommend is user testing. So instead, and you ask them similar questions, but you've got them on your website. You can actually ask them to do things, go to particular pages. You can guide them to put parts that you want particular feedback on. So that works really well. Setting up, but you need to ensure that it's your target audience is it matches the user testers, using demographic screener questions to ensure that they match your target audience. So that is something, get at least 5 user tests on mobile, 5 on desktop. Ask them, similar types of questions. I mean, the other thing you can do is, even at the end of it, you can ask them, please go to Google and try to find another website similar to this, and they will give you, and ask them for their feedback on another website. Just in the same way, in the customer survey, another good question for that would have been, did you consider nearly buying from someone else, and why did you nearly consider that? And if you get answers from that, then it will help you realize, okay, they've got that service, or they've got this guarantee, or they've got that messaging or content that seems to be missing. That's the really important task, just like you can do that with user testing. So you've got moderated user testing when it's where you can actually ask them specific questions, and if they end up really interested in one particular page, you can dig deeper as you go. But most common way of doing it is unmoderated, where you set the questions in advance, and then they do it on their mobile phone, and then it gets sent to you with their audio and recording of the answers, which gives, again, really good. And the other good thing with that is it will help you find bug fixes. So visitor surveys, sometimes they'll point out things that are broken, but quite often they won't have noticed them yet. Whereas on a full journey user test on your website or a mobile and desktop, they may uncover issues. Particularly interesting if they're using a like a mobile browser. Maybe they're using like Samsung internet, for example, rather than using Safari or Chrome, which may make you see like, oh wow, look, that's broken. That shouldn't be like that. So it's also really good for helping understand what could be broken, because the other interesting thing conversion rate optimization is you've got to fix the broken things, like fix broken shit first. Because if you don't do that, then even getting these ideas and insights from your customers via conversion research, it won't work as well if you're fundamentally got something, not a good user experience that that isn't being detected very often. So that's why user testing, I would always highly recommend that, and it can really work well with in combination with visitor and customer surveys. I highly recommend them, and it's to me it's really exciting and really eye-opening. And I guarantee that if you do it and you haven't done it before and you do it well, you will be like, wow, this is amazing, better than any other kind of research I've ever done before. You will quite often say that, particularly if you haven't done this before.
Yeah, we've talked about how often a survey should be launched, the kind of questions that should be asked, and how to improve the quality of customer feedback. Let's talk about what you do with the feedback that you get from the customers. Suppose you get about 500 responses. What's next?
Yeah, very good question. So, well, first of all, with the visitor survey, I would actually stop it after 200, because that will give you a good
Mm-hmm.
kind of amount to analyze. You'll get a lot of patterns through that and a good cross section of responses. So you don't really need much more than 200. You can always run it again after you've made more improvements, but once you've got those, what you need to do is you can use things like word clouds to pick out keywords, but I don't really find them that useful, and it can pull out words that are not really that, or really that like shipping or delivery. Like, okay, that's one word on its own doesn't really give you much insight, but the best thing that you need to do is what's called like codification of the types of insights you're getting. So
Okay.
whether it's an issue, whether it's a suggestion, whether it's a fix, those are major categories there. Then you would also do categorization by the page that it's on.
Mm-hmm.
So for the homepage, what are the major issues? Do it through all, create a spreadsheet and write down those issues. Try to come up with the most interesting ones and list them down separately, and also the amount of times each is mentioned, because that is also important to see. If something gets mentioned 50 times, then that is going to be really important for you to address that in particular. So use some kind of quantitative analysis in there as well, but don't just discard something if it's only been mentioned once, because some people,
Yeah.
they may have not noticed it, or may not have even thought that it was an issue, but it actually is an issue. So
Mhm.
that's why it's important to look at every response, and spend, you'll need like good 4 or 5 hours to review the answers. Sit down with your team, review them with them, and really kind of then convert that into, excuse the pun, into ideas for improving your website. And then you would then prioritize those depending on what page it's on, how likely impact you think it's going to have on improving your website. And then if you've got enough traffic, A/B test them.
Mm. Nice, nice. This has been very insightful. For for our listeners, what do you think should be like the main takeaway from this episode when it comes to customer surveys? If there's like maybe two or three takeaways that they should like grab from this episode.
Yeah. Well, I would say, first of all, get out of the mindset of the kind of dull, boring corporate product orientated surveys, and think about it in terms of visitor experience and customer experience. And then
Mm.
also, the number one thing that will change everything is asking for giving a higher incentive, like $100 or something, for the best or most useful feedback,
Nice.
because you'll cut out all of that crap that when you may have done surveys before, like, oh, this is just full of people saying yes or no, or like
Mhm.
wanting to win the prize. That will change the entire way of the results you get. But then ultimately, if you don't ask good enough questions, you won't get very good insights. So it all kind of, it's not just a simple question of setting up a survey. It's like knowing what to ask, which is where I've come to learn after doing these so many times. and how to ask it. Those are the key things with visitor surveys and customer surveys. But don't give up if it doesn't work. You can always increase the incentive. Try $50 to begin with. You increase it to 100. Again, it's peanuts in comparison to the value that it will bring and insights that it will bring, and it will work. Obviously, if you've got very little traffic, it's going to be a problem. And there are other tools that you can use, like Usability Hub. You can actually try and find your target audience in Usability Hub and kind of set up a mini survey. The only problem is they haven't been on your website really. You can show that you would show them the website in the Usability Hub and hope that the demographics are right, and then it's not anywhere near as good or reliable as getting visitors that are on your website. So but if you don't do anything else this week, do this, because it will be very enlightening, and will open your eyes to like how visitors, what they really think. And it's great for proving to maybe your boss doesn't like something done in a certain way or wants it done his way, or there's a fundamental way of in your business of doing something and you don't want to detract from it. But if you get this feedback, enough of it, that all adds up, it will help you optimize your business as well as your website, because that's to me, conversion optimization is website related, but the bigger picture is business optimization, where making sure that your products, your customers love your product, the shipping is great, that they come back again, creating new products. It's all really, really important. So
okay, one of the things I usually ask people who are way ahead of me in terms of experience in conversion optimization is about books. What books are you reading now?
But that's a good question. Books, I haven't read anything in a while. I find the problem with books is that by the time they've been written, particularly with website techniques and stuff, I mean, I can speak from experience that, I mean, I was lucky because it only took me about 9 months to write my book, and they published it pretty quickly at the time, because they didn't have a lot of other publications going out at the same time. But then so it took basically a year and a half for me to, by the time I started writing it to the time it got launched. And CRO, the techniques grow. Like in my book, I didn't write that much about conversion research. I wrote about best practices and A/B testing and things. But so like when I write a new book in the future, I would talk more about conversion research. But my point here is that I find that with books, that unless it's a broad topic or a like a marketing technique with a new spin on it or something, that something radically different, I don't generally tend to read them. I prefer reading articles from trusted sources. Like one of the really good newsletters that I've liked at the moment is Pablo Yar's new agency called CRO. They've got this really good CRO insight newsletter. Highly recommend that. Very, very good, very detailed, very different. So I highly recommend looking at that one. And where I get most of my value is being part of Slack channels. There's so many great Slack channels out there now, where if you want to get feedback from someone on their opinion of it, or if they've done it before, that has really been tremendously helpful to me, more than reading any book, or even some of the courses out there. I mean, again, PEP's CXL courses at the Institute is excellent. Highly recommend that. But yeah, books, not so much. But if you are looking for the basics and you're very new to CRO, then so you can read my book. It's quite old now, but it does cover the basics and the essentials very well. And one of the other books that definitely recommend, though, that gets talked about a lot, is the Influence by Robert Cialdini. Where it talks about the 6 major factors of persuasion, things like social proof, urgency, scarcity. That was a real eye opener to me, and to start to use those techniques online because they work very well. So if you haven't read that, I'm sure many of you have. Go and read that. It's a very good book, very good book, and it will get you thinking things in a slightly different way. And then, as I said, web analytics books. Avinash Kaushik has done the Web Analytics 2.0 book.
Yeah.
It's quite old now, for 10 years old, but still very relevant. Still got amazing content in it. He's got great news. He's got this great new. It's like a VIP newsletter that you have to pay for, which has got some real great, nuggets in there that you can't easily get elsewhere. He's got free versions still, but definitely recommend that one as well. So yeah, that's what I would say for recommendations for trying to learn and more about CRO.
Okay, suppose some of our listeners want to connect with you, they want to reach out to you. Where can they find you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, on there definitely, or you can come to our website, rich-page.com. I'm actually offering at the moment free 10-minute conversion reviews of any page of your choice. I'll just simply do a quick recording and give you my initial thoughts about that. It's often a good way of understanding what potential you have. So come check that out as well. I'll include the link for everyone listening to if they want to.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I'll add the link in the transcript for this episode.
And then I've also got a good blog post on Medium that talks about all these different visitor survey questions. So there's and customer survey questions. So definitely recommend checking that out too.
That's all for this episode. Thank you, Rich, for taking your time to share your knowledge with us. And special thanks to everyone listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and a review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Simba Dube and on Twitter at Simba Dube ZW. See you next time.